Level 1. The Apprentice. You make somewhere between $16 and $18 an hour, and for the first few months, your entire job is to not become the reason something goes wrong. The truck rolls out of the yard by 7. You're the one who carries the ladder, holds the flashlight, and hands the lead tech the tool he actually asked for, which is not always the tool you hand him the first time. The attic in August sits around 120 degrees, and you learn inside the first week that a wet bandana around your neck buys you maybe 20 extra minutes before your vision starts to swim. The lead shows you how to read a wiring diagram taped inside a panel door, sun-faded and half illegible, and how to trust it anyway. You learn the difference between a contactor and a capacitor while holding both in your hands while he explains it. And you learn the difference between a live wire and a dead one by testing it first. Every time, no exceptions, because the guy who taught him that lesson learned it the hard way and still has the scar. You spend a lot of days coiling copper, sweeping slab, and hauling a condenser that weighs more than you'd like to admit out of the bed of a truck without dropping your end. You start EPA 608 study guides on your phone at lunch because Section 608 of the Clean Air Act says nobody touches refrigerant without a card, and the exam covers 4 types. Type 1 for small appliances, Type 2 for high-pressure systems, Type 3 for low-pressure systems, and Universal, which covers all 3 and is the one every ambitious apprentice actually wants. You fail the practice test twice. You pass the real one on a Tuesday, and the laminated card that comes in the mail 3 weeks later is the first professional credential you've ever held. Somewhere in that first year, you get called out to help on a no heat in January at a house with a family and a space heater running in the living room because the furnace has been down since the weekend. You watch the lead tech explain what's wrong in plain language instead of jargon, watch the mother's shoulders drop with relief when he says he has the part on the truck, and you understand for the first time that this job is not really about copper and refrigerant. It's about being the person who shows up when something in someone's house has failed them. Level 2. The Journeyman. Card in hand, you're running solo calls now, and the pay moves with the responsibility. National data puts the median HVAC technician around $59,000 to $61,000 a year, but that number hides a wide spread, and your spread is heading up because you stopped being the guy who hands over tools and became a guy who's trusted with the truck. Your first solo no-cool call in July comes in at a townhouse where the system has been down since morning and the homeowner has already priced 3 replacement quotes off the internet before you've even pulled into the driveway. You hook up your gauges, check superheat and subcool against the manufacturer's chart, and find a single failed run capacitor, a $14 part behind an $80 diagnostic fee. You could sell her a new unit. You fix the capacitor instead, and she leaves you a 5-star review that afternoon with your first name spelled correctly in it. You learn what a manual J load calculation is and why skipping it is how half the units in this country end up the wrong size for the house they're cooling. You learn to braze a joint under nitrogen purge, so you're not sending oxide scale through a compressor that's supposed to last 15 years. You get your first call back, a system you charged 3 weeks earlier that's short on refrigerant again, which means there's a leak you missed, which means you go back, find the pinhole in the evaporator coil with soap bubbles and a flashlight, and you eat the second visit without charging for it, because a good technician's reputation is worth more than one invoice. Then comes January 1, 2026, and with it the ban on installing new residential systems charged with R410A, the refrigerant you trained on. The replacement is R454B, mildly flammable under the A2L classification. And it means new leak detectors, new recovery equipment rated for a flammable gas, and a manufacturer training course you sit through on a Saturday because the distributor scheduled it for the one day you had off. You realize the trade you're building a career in has now changed its core chemistry twice in your lifetime. R22 stopped being manufactured in 2020, and now its replacement is being replaced. You adapt, because adapting is the job. Level 3. The Comfort Specialist. You've been at this 5 to 7 years now, and the number attached to your name moves into the mid to high 70s, sometimes touching $80,000 with overtime through a brutal summer. You wear a NATE patch on your sleeve, North American Technician Excellence, the certification that separates a parts changer from someone who can commission a variable speed system from scratch. The job that defines this level is a full system replacement on an 18-year-old home whose owner has been living with hot upstairs bedrooms for a decade and just assumed that's how houses work. You run the load calculation the night before. Total cooling comes in at 28,000 BTU an hour, and the 5-ton unit on the roof is oversized by a full 1.5 tons, which is exactly why it's been short cycling, exactly why the humidity never drops, and exactly why the upstairs never feels right no matter how low she sets the thermostat. You explain it to her at the kitchen table, and she says nobody's ever told her that in 18 years of service calls. On install day, you sweep the line set with nitrogen flowing at 2 cubic feet an hour while you braze, because oxide scale left in the copper is what kills a compressor 3 winters early, and nobody ever traces it back to the install. You pull a triple evacuation down under 500 microns, hold it, and weigh the charge in by the gram instead of guessing off a sight glass. You commission the system, run the combustion analysis on the furnace side, and sign off on numbers you'd defend to any inspector who asked. Then a callback comes in on a system another shop installed the summer before. A compressor burned out from acid, the whole line set contaminated, oil coming out black and sour. The full tear out and flush takes the rest of your day and half your evening. You don't go home until after 10. You learn what a callback actually costs a shop in margin, and you learn that the technician who cut corners on that first install is still out there selling the same shortcuts to someone else's customer. Your boss offers to make you a lead. You ask what leads make. He tells you, and it's more, but you're already doing the math on what you'd make with your name on the truck instead of his. Level 4, the owner-operator. You give notice on a Friday. 2 weeks later, a vinyl shop stencils you a name across the door of a used cargo van. Your name, heating and air conditioning, a state license number in smaller type underneath. You finance the truck, put $4,000 of stock on a card, and print business cards at a gas station kiosk because the good printer had a 2-week backlog. The math is unforgiving at first. Roughly 60 to 70% of new HVAC contractors don't make it past the first 18 months, and you understand why inside your first quarter. The phone rings at 6 a.m. and 9 p.m. You're pulling your own permits, bookkeeping at the kitchen table after the kids are down, and chasing an invoice from a property manager who's decided 90 days is a reasonable amount of time to pay a licensed contractor. You file your first mechanic's lien yourself, using a template you found online at midnight, and you get paid 12 days later. Your first year nets you less than you made on salary. Your second year, you land 40 maintenance agreements at $180 apiece, and you realize sitting at that same kitchen table that the agreements, not the installs, are the only thing on your books that has real recurring value. A tech you used to work with calls looking for a job after his old shop laid off half the install crew. You can't afford to hire him yet, but you take his number down because you know exactly the kind of hands you'll want the day you can. By year 3, you've got 1 helper, a second van, and 110 maintenance agreements on the books. The phone still runs your life, but for the first time, it's ringing because of Google reviews and a plumber down the street who sends you every HVAC call he gets, not because a dispatcher assigned you the address. Level 5, the multi-truck owner. 10 trucks now, north of $3 million in revenue, and your own comp somewhere between $220,000 and $400,000 depending on the season and how brutal the summer runs. Dispatch software runs on a monitor mounted in what used to be a break room. You've got a service board that color codes green tickets from red ones, and 400 and some maintenance agreements that quietly pay your rent before the first install of the month ever closes. The tech you almost hired back at level 4 is running your install crews now. You see him at the 6 a.m. meeting, you sign his bonus check on Fridays, and you don't ride in a truck yourself unless something's genuinely on fire. First-year technician turnover in this industry runs 18 to 22%, and you are permanently recruiting, permanently training somebody's replacement before they've even quit. You navigate a supply squeeze the summer the manufacturer allocation runs short 2 weeks before the hottest stretch of July, and you burn favors with 3 different distributors to keep units flowing so customers aren't sitting in 95-degree houses for a week. You fly to a trade show in Atlanta in January, and over dinner, a man in a good suit hands you a card from one of the roll-up platforms buying HVAC shops across the Southeast. He asks what your trailing 12 months of EBITDA looks like. You tell him. He tells you shops your size are trading at 6 to 9 times earnings right now, and larger regional platforms are clearing well into double digits. You do the math on the flight home and don't sleep much on the descent. Level 6. The exit. The call you eventually take isn't dramatic. It rarely is. A regional platform backed by private equity has been buying up fragmented HVAC and plumbing shops across your part of the country, the same way a Tucson company called Rightway did when it sold into a roll-up, watched its revenue climb from around $30 million to roughly $70 million under new ownership, and let its founder keep a real stake and a real say instead of walking away entirely. Diligence takes 90 days. A team goes through your maintenance agreement list, your dispatch software history, 3 years of financials, and every truck title in your fleet. They don't want your accounts payable or the loan on the van you dented backing out of your own driveway in year 1. They want the recurring revenue, the agreements, the customer relationships, the brand goodwill built one Google review at a time. You sign a letter of intent that gives you cash at close, an earnout tied to hitting targets over the next 2 years, and the option to roll a slice of equity into the larger platform instead of cashing out completely, which is exactly what lets you take a second payday when the platform itself eventually sells to a bigger fund at a far higher multiple than you were paid. You stay on for a transition period as regional manager. Your name stays on the trucks for a while. Then, quietly, it doesn't. The refrigerant you trained on at 18 isn't sold new anymore. The refrigerant you switched to in your 30s is already being crowded by the next one. The company on your door isn't yours in the same way anymore either. None of that changes what's underneath it. A family somewhere is sweating through a July afternoon right now waiting for a truck to pull into the driveway, and somebody 20 years younger than you is about to hand a senior tech the wrong nut driver and learn, the same way you did, exactly what this trade actually runs on. Here's the part nobody tells you at 18, sweating through a second shirt in an attic that never cools down. The wrench never stopped being the asset. It just stopped being the only one. The capacitor you swapped for $14, the maintenance agreement you signed for $180 a year, the load calculation you run correctly when it would have been easier to guess, none of it looks like much on its own. Stacked over 20 years, one clean call at a time, it's the difference between a paycheck and a company somebody else is willing to pay 8 figures for. You still keep your first EPA card in a drawer somewhere, laminated, 4 boxes checked. It doesn't do anything for you anymore. You keep it anyway.